August 10th, 30 BC. She's 39 years old, lying on a golden couch in a tomb she built herself, dressed in full royal regalia. 2 dead servants on the floor beside her, a basket of figs overturned. And Cleopatra, the last pharaoh of Egypt, is dead, unalived by a snake bite, the story goes, or poison hairpin, or toxic ointment. Nobody really knows because her personal physician refused to explain how she died. But here's what we do know. She chose this. She orchestrated her own death with the same cold calculation she used to seduce 2 of Rome's most powerful men and nearly change the course of Western civilization. And when you look at her chart, Capricorn Sun, of course, because this wasn't a woman who did anything without a plan. Wait till you see how her Saturn-ruled ambition explains literally every single move she made, including the 3 family members she allegedly had killed. And that Venus placement? Oh, we're going to talk about how she picked exactly 2 men to sleep with in her entire life, and both of them just happened to control the Roman world. If you're obsessed with understanding historical figures through astrology, hit subscribe. And listen, I want to know, do you think Cleopatra's Capricorn placement made her a strategic genius or just ruthlessly cold? Drop your take in the comments because I'm genuinely curious if you'd want her energy in your chart or if it's too intense. Born January 69th BC in Alexandria, Egypt, Capricorn Sun. We don't have her birth time, so no moon or rising, but honestly, her sun sign alone explains so much it's actually unhinged. Capricorn is a cardinal earth sign ruled by Saturn, the planet of discipline, long-term strategy, and ruthless ambition. These are the CEOs of the zodiac, the people who see a mountain and don't think that's too hard. They think, I'll be standing on top of that in 5 years. They're master strategists, patient, calculating, willing to do whatever it takes to reach the summit, even if that means stepping on everyone who gets in their way. Saturn doesn't mess around. It's the taskmaster planet, the one that teaches through hardship and rewards through perseverance. It's why Capricorns have this reputation for being workaholics who'd rather die than admit failure. They see obstacles as challenges to overcome, not reasons to quit. And relationships, Capricorns don't fall in love, they form strategic alliances. They don't have friends, they have useful contacts. And family? Family is only sacred until they become an obstacle to power. The shadow side shows up as emotional detachment that borders on sociopathic, ruthlessness that makes Scorpios look soft, an inability to stop climbing even when there's nowhere left to go, materialism that values possessions over people, and this deep, bone-level fear of losing control that makes them rigid and unable to adapt when circumstances change. Cleopatra's chart is a masterclass in Capricorn energy at its absolute peak. Every relationship she formed was transactional. Every decision was made with ice-cold pragmatism. And when she finally lost, she made sure she controlled even that. Picture this. You're a Ptolemaic princess born into a dynasty that's been ruling Egypt for almost 300 years. Macedonian Greek blood. 0 Egyptian ancestry. Your family tree is so tangled with sibling marriages it looks like a pretzel. Your father, Ptolemy X, is weak, drunk, and hated by the Egyptian people. Rome is expanding everywhere, your kingdom is crumbling, and you're watching all of this as a kid, studying in the Library of Alexandria, surrounded by the greatest minds of the ancient world. Very Capricorn childhood, honestly. Learning languages while your dynasty falls apart around you. No time for play, no time for childhood, just preparation. Capricorns often mature faster than their peers because they sense instability early and respond by becoming hyper-competent. They're the kids who understand adult conversations, who see the family finances failing before anyone tells them, who start planning their future at age 10. Cleopatra grew up knowing her family's reign was precarious. Egypt was technically independent, but basically a client state of Rome. Her father paid massive bribes to maintain his throne. She learned early that power isn't inherited, it's taken and held through strategy. So she studied. Cleopatra learned Greek, Egyptian, Hebrew, Arabic, Aramaic, Ethiopian, Median, Parthian, and Latin. 9 languages. Not for fun, not because she was bored, because knowledge is power and Capricorns understand that better than anyone. Here's what's insane. She was the first Ptolemaic ruler in 300 years who bothered learning Egyptian. Every single one of her ancestors only spoke Greek, ruling over millions of Egyptians whose language they refused to learn. Classic colonizer behavior. But Cleopatra? She learned it. She spoke to her people in their own tongue. She styled herself as Isis reincarnated. She understood something her family never did. You can't control people you can't communicate with. This is Saturn teaching through practicality. Other rulers could afford to be distant and aloof. Cleopatra's position was too unstable for that luxury. So she did the work. She built the foundation. She created genuine connection with her subjects in a way her ancestors never bothered with. That's evolved Capricorn energy, using ambition not just for personal gain, but for creating lasting structures that benefit everyone. She was 18 when her father died in 51 BC. Egyptian tradition said a woman needed a male co-ruler, so they married her off to her 10-year-old brother Ptolemy III, married. Her 10-year-old brother, but Cleopatra looked at this child and was like, absolutely not. Within months, she'd pushed him aside completely. Official documents from late 51 BC list only her name. She'd erased him from the narrative. Capricorns don't share power. They tolerate co-rulers only as long as legally necessary, then they eliminate them. She probably didn't see this as cruel. To a Capricorn, it's just logical. A 10-year-old can't rule, she can. Therefore, she should. Emotions don't enter the equation. Of course, her brother had advisors, powerful men who didn't appreciate being sidelined by an 18-year-old woman. Chief among them was the eunuch Parthenos, Ptolemy's childhood tutor, who basically controlled the young king. By 48 BC, they'd forced Cleopatra into exile. She fled to Syria. Most people would have given up, accepted defeat, found a nice, quiet life somewhere safe. Cleopatra raised an army. That's the Capricorn in her. They don't give up. They regroup. They assess what went wrong. They build a better strategy. They come back stronger. 48 BC. Julius Caesar arrives in Alexandria, chasing his rival Pompey through Egypt. He's 52 years old, Rome's most powerful man, and he's about to meet a 21-year-old queen who's about to completely recalculate his future. Cleopatra needs him. Her brother's forces control Alexandria. She's locked out of her own palace with an army camped outside the city. Caesar is her only shot at getting her throne back. So what does she do? She has herself smuggled into his chambers. The story says she was rolled up in a carpet. Other sources say a linen sack or a bedroll. Either way, she appears in front of Caesar like magic. Young, brilliant, desperate, and he's immediately hooked. But here's the thing. This wasn't love. This was the most Capricorn business transaction of all time. Cleopatra offered Caesar Egypt's wealth, its resources, its grain that fed Rome, its gold that financed wars. She made herself indispensable. That's what Capricorns do in relationships. They become the person you can't live without, not through emotion, through utility. Caesar got Egypt's riches and a brilliant ally who spoke 9 languages and understood Eastern politics better than anyone in his circle. Cleopatra got the military power of Rome behind her claim. In return, Caesar destroyed her brother's army. Ptolemy X drowned in the Nile in 47 BC during the battle. Convenient. She bore Caesar a son, Caesarion, in 47 BC. Pregnant at 22 with Rome's most powerful man's child. Classic Capricorn strategy. Leverage pregnancy for political legitimacy. That child was her insurance policy, proof of her connection to Caesar, a potential heir to both Egypt and Rome if she played it right. Saturn rules long-term planning. Capricorns think in decades. While everyone else is worried about tomorrow, they're building dynasties. She followed Caesar back to Rome in 46 BC, living openly as his mistress in his villa across the Tiber. Scandalous. Shocking. Romans were horrified by this foreign queen flaunting her relationship with their leader, bringing her child, bringing her brother husband Ptolemy XIV with her as a weird political formality. The Roman people hated her, called her a seductress, a foreign threat. But Cleopatra didn't care about Roman morality. She cared about securing her position. Saturn-ruled Capricorns understand that sometimes you have to break social convention to achieve your goals. They're willing to be misunderstood, to be hated, to be called names, as long as they get what they came for. March 15th, 44 BC. The Ides of March. Caesar's assassinated, 23 stab wounds from his own senators. Cleopatra was in Rome when it happened. Her meal ticket, her protector, her strategic alliance, dead. Everything she'd built for 3 years, gone in one morning. Most people would panic. Cleopatra packed up and returned to Egypt immediately. And here's where it gets really dark. Her remaining brother-husband, Ptolemy XIV, mysteriously dies shortly after she returns. Most historians think she had him poisoned. She installed her 3-year-old son, Caesarion, as co-ruler instead. Ruthless, absolutely, but look at it from her perspective. Ptolemy XIV had advisors, factions, people who could use him against her the same way they used Ptolemy XIII. Caesarion was her son, completely controllable, 3 years old. The perfect co-ruler for a Capricorn who needs total control. Family only matters until they threaten your power. That's shadow side Capricorn. They can sacrifice anyone if the logic supports it. 3 years pass. Cleopatra rules Egypt alone with her toddler son. Rome is in chaos. Civil war between Caesar's assassins and his supporters. Then the second triumvirate forms. 3 men ruling Rome. Octavian, Caesar's adopted heir. Lepidus, and Mark Antony. Antony takes control of the eastern territories. And in 41 BC, he summons Cleopatra to Tarsus. He wants answers. Where did her loyalties lie during the civil war? Is she a threat? Is she an ally? This meeting could go very wrong for her. Antony has the power to destroy Egypt. But Cleopatra doesn't show up like a supplicant. She arrives on a golden barge with purple sails and silver oars. Dressed as the goddess Venus, boys dressed as cupids fanning her, musicians playing, the most extra entrance in ancient history. The entire city of Tarsus came out to watch, and it worked. Antony was obsessed. But let's be clear, Cleopatra didn't seduce him with her looks. Ancient Roman sources, written by her enemies, so take this with salt. Barely mention her appearance. Plutarch says she wasn't particularly beautiful. Dio says she was ordinary looking. What she had was intelligence, wit, charm, and the ability to make powerful men feel like they were the center of the universe while she quietly maneuvered them exactly where she wanted them. Capricorns don't need to be the prettiest, they just need to be the smartest person in the room, the most useful, the most indispensable. She and Antony formed a partnership, political, romantic, military. They had 3 children together, twins in 40 BC, Alexander Helios and Cleopatra Selene, named Sun and Moon, and another son, Ptolemy Philadelphus, in 36 BC. They called their lifestyle club the Inimitable Livers. Basically a drinking society for the rich and powerful where they'd have elaborate feasts and parties. But this wasn't just hedonism. Antony controlled the eastern Roman territories. Cleopatra controlled Egypt. Together, they were planning to rule a massive Hellenistic empire that would rival Western Rome itself. In 34 BC, they held the donations of Alexandria, a massive public ceremony where they declared their children rulers of various territories. Caesarion was named King of Kings. The twins were given Armenia, Media, and Parthia. This was a direct challenge to Rome's authority. Antony was distributing Roman territories to Cleopatra's children. The Roman Senate was terrified, especially Octavian, Caesar's heir, who controlled the West and saw his power threatened. He declared war in 32 BC, not on Antony, his fellow Roman, on Cleopatra, because the optics of going to war with a fellow Roman weren't great, but going to war with a foreign seductress who'd corrupted Roman men with her sexuality and Eastern magic. That propaganda sold perfectly. September 2nd, 31st BC, the Battle of Actium, naval battle off the coast of Greece. Cleopatra commanded 60 ships. Antony commanded the rest of their fleet. Octavian's forces, led by General Agrippa, were clearly winning. And right in the middle of the battle, Cleopatra's fleet turned around and fled. Just left. Took her 60 ships and sailed back to Egypt. Antony, seeing her leave, abandoned his own fleet and followed her. His remaining forces surrendered to Octavian without him. This is where people argue about Cleopatra's loyalty. Did she betray Antony? Was she saving Egypt's navy? Or was this peak Capricorn pragmatism, recognizing a losing battle and preserving resources for the next fight? I think it's the third one. Capricorns don't go down with sinking ships. They're already planning their exit strategy while everyone else is still fighting. They see the writing on the wall before it's fully written. This is Saturn's gift, the ability to see reality clearly even when that reality is brutal. Let's talk about the patterns here, because this is what makes Cleopatra such a perfect Capricorn case study. Strategic partnerships over romance. She had exactly 2 sexual partners in her entire life that we know of. 2. Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. Both chosen for maximum political impact. Both relationships produced children who cemented her claims to power. She didn't have flings, she didn't have casual affairs. She didn't date for fun. Every intimate relationship was a calculated political move. That's Saturn energy. Sex isn't about pleasure or connection. It's about alliance building, dynasty creating, power securing. Most Capricorns aren't quite this extreme, but they do tend to date with purpose. They're looking for partners who fit into their life plan, who enhance their status, who bring resources to the table. It sounds cold because it is, but Capricorns would argue it's just realistic. Ruthless family elimination. 2 brother husbands, both dead under suspicious circumstances. Her sister Arsinoe, Cleopatra allegedly had her executed in 41 BC. When your family threatens your throne, Capricorns remove the obstacle. They don't lose sleep over it. They don't second-guess themselves. They see it as necessary. This is where Saturn's influence gets dark. Saturn rules boundaries and elimination. When something or someone is in your way, you remove them. No guilt, no hesitation. Master of public image. She styled herself as Isis reincarnated. Spoke to crowds in Egyptian while her ancestors had only spoken Greek. Commissioned artwork showing her as the Egyptian pharaoh, not a Greek ruler. She understood propaganda before the word existed. Capricorns are obsessed with how they're perceived. They carefully construct their public image. They know exactly what story they want people to tell about them. Cleopatra wanted Egyptians to see her as one of them, as their divine ruler chosen by the gods, not as a foreign Macedonian colonizer. Long-term planning. She named her children Alexander Helios and Cleopatra Selene, sun and moon. Cosmic claims to universal rule. References to Alexander the Great, linking her son to the most famous conqueror in history. She wasn't thinking about next year. She was planning dynasties that would rule for generations. Capricorns plant trees they'll never sit under. They build cathedrals they'll never see finished. They think in centuries, control through knowledge. 9 languages meant she could negotiate with anyone in their native tongue. She never needed translators who could betray her. She always had information advantage. She could read letters from foreign powers herself, speak directly to ambassadors and merchants. This is Capricorn's superpower, understanding that knowledge is the ultimate form of control. Information is leverage. Every single move Cleopatra made for 20 years was building toward one goal: securing Egypt's independence and her family's power. She was willing to sacrifice anything for it. Her reputation among Romans who called her a whore, her brothers who stood in her way, her sister who'd tried to claim the throne years earlier, her dignity in Roman eyes. Everything. August 1st, 30 BC. Octavian's forces are at the gates of Alexandria. Antony's fleet defects. His cavalry switches sides without fighting. Within hours, Antony has nothing. There's a story that Cleopatra sent him a false message saying she'd killed herself. Maybe to prompt him to do the same so she could negotiate with Octavian alone. Maybe it was an accident. Maybe it's Roman propaganda making her look manipulative. We don't know, but Antony hears it, believes it, and orders his servant Eros to stab him. Eros kills himself instead. So Antony does it himself, stabs himself in the stomach, but he doesn't die immediately. The wound is fatal, but slow. They carry him to Cleopatra's tomb where she's barricaded herself with her treasures. Some sources say they had to hoist him up through a window with ropes because she refused to open the door. She couldn't risk Octavian's forces getting in. Imagine that scene, your lover dying in your arms, being hauled through a window, blood everywhere, your kingdom falling outside. Antony dies, telling her to trust a man named Gaius Proculeius on Octavian's side. Classic man advice, completely useless, because Proculeius is the one who tricks her. Cleopatra tries negotiating with Octavian. Of course she does. She's Capricorn. There's always an angle. She offers him wealth. She offers him Egypt's treasures. She offers a list of her riches. She even offers herself. Octavian sends Proculeius to negotiate. While they're talking, Proculeius's men break into her tomb through a window, capture her before she can burn herself and her treasures. She tries to stab herself with a dagger. They stop her. Octavian doesn't negotiate. He makes his terms clear. He's taking Egypt. And he's taking her back to Rome to parade through the streets in his triumph as a war trophy. The ultimate humiliation. Being dragged in chains through Rome while crowds jeer, displayed as the conquered enemy. The foreign seductress defeated. Everything she built reduced to entertainment for Roman citizens. Cleopatra told him directly, according to historian Livy, "I will not be led in a triumph." One of the only direct quotes we have from her. 5 words, absolute certainty. She would not be humiliated. She would not lose control of her own narrative. A spy informed her that Octavian planned to move her to Rome in 3 days, so she did what any Capricorn would do when they realize they've lost. She took control of the only thing she had left, her death, August 10th or 12th, 30 BC. Sources disagree on the exact date. She's dressed in full royal regalia, her most beautiful clothing, crown on her head, jewelry, cosmetics applied perfectly. She's arranged on a golden couch, the symbols of royalty placed in her hands. Her servants Eris and Charmian die with her. Some say they took poison too. Others say they died from grief. The popular story is an asp, an Egyptian cobra, smuggled in with a basket of figs. Symbol of divine royalty, poetic, dramatic, very on brand. But the truth? Probably poison applied with a hairpin or hollow comb. There were 2 small puncture marks on her arm. No snake was ever found, no basket of figs. The asp story might have been Octavian's propaganda, making her death seem exotic and sexual. Figs and snakes had sexual connotations in Roman culture, classic way to discredit a powerful woman. Make her death about seduction and Eastern mystery instead of political calculation. But here's what's consistent across all sources. She died at 39, dressed as a queen, arranged beautifully, in complete control until the very end. Octavian was furious when he found her. He'd wanted his triumph, his victory parade, his chance to drag Egypt's queen through Rome in chains. But even in defeat, Cleopatra denied him that. He buried her in royal fashion next to Antony, probably because even he understood this woman had earned that much respect. Egypt became a Roman province. The Ptolemaic dynasty that had ruled for 300 years ended. Cleopatra's son Caesarion, Octavian had him killed immediately. 2 Caesars are too many, he reportedly said. Couldn't risk having Caesar's biological son alive as a rival to Caesar's adopted heir. All her surviving children with Antony, Alexander Helios, Cleopatra Selene, and Ptolemy Philadelphus, were taken to Rome and paraded in Octavian's triumph in 29 BC. Walked through the streets in golden chains behind an effigy of their dead mother. Cleopatra would have hated that. The one thing she wanted to prevent happening to her happened to her children. Instead, Cleopatra Selene, the daughter, eventually married King Juba II of Mauritania and became a queen herself. Continuing her mother's legacy in a different form, the sons disappear from historical record, probably died young. But here's the thing. 2,000 years later, we're still talking about her. We know her name better than almost any other ancient ruler. We study her strategies, we debate her motivations. She lost the war but won the immortality. Very Capricorn. The legacy matters more than the moment. Her chart predicted everything. The ruthless climb to power is pure Saturn ambition, the strategic partnerships. Capricorn's transactional approach to relationships, the family eliminations. Shadow side, Capricorn, removing obstacles without remorse. The language mastery. Capricorn's understanding that knowledge is control, the controlled death, refusing to lose dignity even in defeat. Capricorns will sacrifice everything, including themselves rather than lose control. That's what killed Cleopatra. Not the poison, not the asp, the inability to accept defeat. She stood at the top of the world for 20 years through sheer force of will and strategic brilliance. And when the mountain crumbled beneath her, she chose to jump rather than be dragged down. That's Capricorn at its peak. Unbeatable ambition, unstoppable drive, master strategist who plays the long game better than anyone. And at its shadow, so focused on control that they'd rather die than adapt. So emotionally detached, they can sacrifice their own family without hesitation. So committed to the plan that they can't pivot when the plan fails. So afraid of humiliation that death seems preferable to losing face. Cleopatra is proof that your greatest strengths become your fatal flaws. Her Capricorn placement gave her everything: the intelligence to master 9 languages, the patience to build alliances over decades, the ruthlessness to eliminate threats without hesitation, the strategic genius to seduce 2 of Rome's most powerful men and nearly pull off the impossible. But it also took everything away, because when a Capricorn refuses to bend, they break, and Cleopatra, she never learned to bend.